Welcome. I'm Dr. Brian Williams, and I want to welcome you to our community education that we're offering to our region and the world for July and maybe a little longer. And so we are pleased to be able to introduce you to Nettie K of Nettie K Studio. And Nettie K Studio is a YouTube sensation. And so we're really pleased to offer the education that Nettie K, my wife, offers to the world. And so, welcome, Nettie K.
Hello, welcome. I'm glad to be back, I should say. We were here last week and had a wonderful time, and so I'm really happy to have the opportunity to share a little bit more of what I know with you in kind of beginning type art.
Now, can you give us an idea of what you did last week, if this is the first time that people have caught us?
All right. Well, last week we began with some basic painting and shapes of cylinders and spheres. So that those are the two shapes that I worked on. And so if you missed that, you can go back and watch that again. I'll watch it for the first time. That would be good. On how to paint a cylinder and how to paint a sphere. And you can also translate that into pencil and practice drawing those two shapes, because so many of the things that we do involve those two particular shapes in 3 dimensions.
So how are you planning to use those shapes tonight?
So tonight I'm going to just expand them a little bit, and I'm going to be doing a vase, and we're going to talk about the qualities of making that particular shape the bottom of a vase and adding the cylinder to the top of it. So we start out with the sphere at the bottom, add a bit of a variety of the cylinder on top, and then I'm also going to add a pear in front of it. And so we're going to be doing a silver, metallic silver vase tonight. And so I'm real excited about that idea. And I might even add a few little flowers in there. We'll see what time will allow. Yes.
Well, welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
All righty. So this last Tuesday night, we had such a blast out at Tamarack Resort. I don't know if any of you guys have been out there, but I had 10 students, 12, I guess it was 11 students that signed up for our paint and sip out there. And we did some water lilies and we learned how to paint water. It was just so much fun. And so I'm going to be doing a couple more of those in August. If you get a chance, you can sign up and we'll do another round of learning how to paint out there as well. But tonight I want to kind of dig in a little bit and kind of just make what we learned last week just a little bit bigger, a little bit deeper, and so that hopefully you can make that next step. All right, so the first thing I want to think about is where I'm going to put our vase. And so I'm going to begin, I think, with a little bit of a dark blue, and I'm going to think about the vase, and this is how we don't make it go all over the place. Hopefully, if you're sitting directly in front of your canvas, you'll know that we make a straight line down, and I hope I'm close. It feels like I'm wandering. I'm sitting about directly, actually about 6 inches, maybe 10 inches off to the side. So normally you would be like this, okay? And then you wouldn't make the same mistakes that I'm probably going to make, but I hope not. Now I'm going to say, all right, how wide is it? This is our center, the center of our vase right here. And so now I'm going to decide how wide I want the bottom part of this vase to go. And I'll just kind of broaden it out like this, and I can adjust it as I go. So I'm going to see if I'm going to double check it to make sure it's kind of about the same. So you can see, you can actually get your ruler out if you really want to. You can get your ruler out and measure and get it just exactly right. And then I'll bring around, so I'm going to begin with this, the sphere of the bottom of the vase. Okay, so it's not exactly a sphere, it's a kind of a squashed little I Dream of Jeannie looking thing. And I just get my arm moving in this direction and I can get it pretty good, I can get it pretty pretty close to being accurate. And so that's the base of the picture. And then I'm going to come up and decide how far up to put the rim of the picture right here. And so then I decide how far out this part is going to be. So here we go. I'm going to come down here. Remember our cylinder from last week? So this is the cylinder part of the picture right there. And instead of making it exactly like a cylinder, so it's just, you know, stuck down, I'm going to come out like this, and we're going to come out like this, a little bit like that, and hopefully it will be even more accurate than last week, so it's kind of got a little bit askew. But that's how I would begin and make sure that I get things. Now I can see that that doesn't look exactly right because I've got this one fatter, but I'll go like this, and then I'll come out and I see that this is the edge out there. I can come in with my little rag and make sure that I've got it fairly close. And then I'm going to find out where the top of that is. And so I'll look at the picture and I'll say, well, and you see the artist going like this with one eye and holding their paintbrush out and going like this. Well, they're really measuring so you don't end up with a circle on top, because your brain wants to make a big, huge, full-on circle because you think that that's what it really looks like. But how you figure it out is you go, okay, well, how much space is there really from the front rim to the back rim right there? And so that's where I'm going with that. So there's the back rim, and then I'll just come around and create another elliptical shape just like this. And then if I want to add something to it, like maybe a little the pouring section on the picture, I'll stick it out like this, and then I can create that little area there and adjust whatever I want to do. And so there it is right there. And then of course we need something to hold on to, so I'll stick a little handle on there, and we'll put this handle up just like this. I've got this really close to the edge of the canvas, so normally if I were trying to make this exactly right, I probably would move it just a little bit over, but that's where we're at right now. So I'll put that like that. Okay, so there is my basic shape of the picture that I want. And then I'm going to add then another element, and that is going to be our hair. And so I'm going to grab just a little bit of an orange color. It's going to look a little weird. Probably won't look exactly orange. Let's just get that a little lighter. How about a little bit of purple? That'll work. A little more purple. And I'll go in and I'll say, okay, well, I want the pear to look as though it's in front of this picture. So I'm not going to put it on the same line. I'm not going to set it over here. I want to overlap it slightly and drop it down a little bit. So I'll put the pear, which is very similar in its shape in some ways, right here. And so I'll go, okay, here's the base of the pear. Remember our sphere. There it is. And then I will add on top of that a little top part of the pear like this. Okay, just a little pear shape just like that. That's pretty easy. And then I could also add another one if I wanted to by doing the same thing. So I can come back over here and maybe put another pear like this. I'll put another sphere, excuse me, another sphere, and then maybe I can move that down like this and create this shape going that way. That's pretty easy. Once you kind of understand the basic shapes, you can do all kinds of different things, even without having anything in front of you, though I do recommend having something in front of you. Okay, so now I've got my light. It's coming down like this, and so I'm going to pull off a little bit of a bit of paint there, a little paint here, so I can put a little highlight on our pear. And then I don't need these lines anymore, so I'm going to now take those out so they don't become part of the painting. And just do that. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of a dark purple, maybe with a little bit of a raw sienna color. We'll see. This just kind of gives me a nice dark shadow. Remember, we talked about the importance of making everything have different tonal values. So last week it was 3 tonal values, and then we add the cast shadow and highlight. So right now, if the light's coming from over here, don't put this arrow on your painting. I'm going to put down here, I'm going to put, actually, you know what, I'm going to give this even a little bit more. Now I'm not, I'm going to leave it. Okay, this is your prerogative. As an artist, you know, you can change your mind. Okay, so I'm going to now put this down with a cast shadow, kind of like that, in a dark purple this time. I like a violet for my cast shadows, and then I'm going to do this down here. We're going to set it down with the little cast shadow with this dark violet, and this is going to kind of overlap into the other shadow right there. So I'm just attaching these shadows together, attaching them together like this, and fuzzing them out. Now remember, when you've got a shadow, you don't want to have a really sharp edge on your shadow. Okay, unless you've got a flash or something that you're using. You want to make it nice and fuzzy and soft on the edge of your shadow, because shadows are not generally really hard-edged kind of things, and so you want to kind of think about it that way. Now I'm going to take that same little bit of the, let's see, some of that same shadowy type color, and I'm going to separate, let's see, I'm going to put a little bit of that darker color in that, you remember the sphere has a dark color, dark side on one side, and I'm leaving a little bit of an edge, a little space between the edge of the pear and where that dark is. So I'm not going right up against the edge of the pear. And then I'll put, this one is in a nice dark color here, and I'll do the same right there. And this one also kind of casts a little bit of a shadow right on to that pear. So there's just, that gives it kind of a little separation like this. All right. So I've got that shadow.
Nettie, if I could just sort of highlight something for you that has just happened. This is a new project for us as we go live here. And one of the interesting things that we can do when we're live is we can actually chat with those who are listening.
Oh, wonderful.
And I just wanted to let you know that Johnny Simmons Johnson is also watching.
Hello.
And so I'll try and if I get a question from somebody on our live chat, we'll try and pass those along to you at an appropriate moment.
Wonderful.
Okay, so I just sort of wanted to let you know what was also happening tonight.
That's really fun. I'm just very thrilled about that.
I'll let you back at it.
All right, here we go. And so now I've got a little bit of a dark, let's see, what is this one? Ultramarine blue. Silver, everybody, is not black and white. All right, I know most of you guys, if you were just beginning, you would think silver is painted with black and white, but I'm not using any black on my palette at all. What? Yes, that's true. So my silver, I'm starting out with a little bit of, I've got a little purple, and I've got a little bit of that pear color on there. I've got purple, I've got blue, and I've got a little bit of our raw sienna or yellow ochre, raw sienna. And so I'm going to put in this dark shadow right here. This is a dark tonal value. Probably that cast shadow is going to have to even go darker, but right now I'm going to go this direction. And then I'm going to find it over here. I'm going to put another dark area here, and I think I'll grab a little bit more of our blue, a little more of a dark blue right here. And I'm not going to the edge. I'm leaving this area right here wide open, primarily so that I can have what's called a reflective light. And so I'll find that. I'll find this under here a little bit. Let's see. Now, if the light is shining right this direction, it's going to cast a shadow into the little spout right there. And it's also going to cast a shadow into this side of our vase right here, our pitcher vase. So it's going to have a little bit of a dark area that goes almost halfway in, and then it's going to be light over on this side where the light hits it on that side. I know that seems a little bit confusing. That's just the way it is, and we'll get to that as to why in a few minutes. Okay, So now we've got what? We've got kind of our basic dark area right here, dark area on the pear, dark here, and a bit of a cast shadow. That's where we're at. Now, the next thing I want to do is come up a little bit with my next level up. And so I'm going to add a little bit of white to my paint. And I think on this one, I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit with that silver to start with. And this is in a lavender. I've got a little lavender on my warm lavender. It's a purple, dioxazine purple with a little bit of raw sienna and a lot of white. And I'm going to test that out and see what that looks like. So now I can put a line that kind of comes down the middle like this, maybe a little bit lighter, and like that. And then I'm going to go over here and begin to wiggle my brush back and forth a little bit like that, and create that middle tone as it comes across. Now I'll go back in again and do the same thing as I come down here, a little bit like that, and then I'll wiggle it in a little bit like this and have a kind of a middle tone like that. Now that's pretty purple. So now I'm going to come in, and I think what I'd like to do at this stage is grab a little bit of teal and some white. This is really kind of weird, I know. And we'll go into greens, we'll go do all sorts of different things. And put a little bit of teal, and I think then we'll add a little bit of brown with the teal. So this is the raw sienna with a little bit of teal. It's just, and you know, with silver, it's so highly reflective. A lot of times you can start with the highlight. I don't always, but I'll look at what it's sitting on, and I'll work those colors in, and I'll put this into there. I'll reflect what is next to it into it. I'll put a little bit of that color into this silver as well because it's super reflective. Now we'll get a little bit crazy here, and I think what I'll do is I'm going to come up with a I'm going to grab some of my orange as my transparent orange, and now I'm going to really add a lot of white to it. The picture that I'm looking at, I'm sorry I don't have that one, I don't have the camera on that, I probably should have a camera on that one as well, is very tarnished. And so because it's tarnished, it has kind of a yellow effect on it. So now I'm going to come up here and put in a yellow, and it's also got a very yellow light to it, a light yellow highlight on the top here. I'm going to grab even more of the light color or light tonal value, and I want to really get that super light. So now I'm going to come in with the kind of white, and I'm going to put in a seriously light highlight where I see it right there. That's nice and chunky too. And so I'll put that, look how thick that paint is, it's just crazy. And then I'm going to come over here and put in a little bit of that light there. Now this is a bit rough, and I love it that way. I like that kind of artistic, kind of rough, thick, chunky paint sometimes, depending on my mood. Okay. We were actually using acrylic paint at Tamarack on Tuesday night, and we started out with fairly thin paint, and then we moved up to squeeze bottles and created texture on top of things. And so that's really a lot of fun when you can play around and add stuff and just be free and enjoy yourself. And so I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight right here, and then I'm going to, I'll be just a little bit light there, and it'll kind of, it's not really light right there, just moderately light. And then I'll go back in with a little bit of a combination of blue and a little bit of raw sienna, which gives it a bit of a green feel to it, a little kind of a greenish brown, like that. Add a little bit more blue, a little bit more white. You just mess around with it. And now on this side, I want to make it feel as though there's kind of a reflective light coming on here. So I'm going to make this a little bit more dramatic because it might not pick up on the camera. So I'll just make it a little bit more dramatic than it really is. And look at that. Ooh, it does not shine. It's just wonderful how it shines like this. And then I'm going to pull this highlight right here. I'm going to get my arm out of the way and kind of drag that up like that. And then fuzz that out a little bit and work that out into the metal like this. And then I'll take my blue and kind of cool it down, a little bit of my raw or some cobalt teal with white. So you're asking yourself two questions when it comes to color, and that's more or less about the temperature. Okay, temperature meaning, is the light warm or cool? Okay, a lot of times we like a warm light. I sure do. And then the things around it are often, look at that, that's a little teal. I don't know if you can see that, but the teal will bring out this kind of an interesting combination. So I've got a warm light and a little bit of a cool light that bounce off of each other. And that's what makes it so interesting at times. So I'm going to throw in a little teal up there, light teal, and a little bit of light there, a little teal, and it begins to allow this to kind of glow. And so you've got warm and cool. And if I'm especially doing a portrait of somebody, oh my goodness, or a landscape, if I made my landscape all light green, dark green, and my portrait's lighter brown, darker brown, well, it's just not going to be very interesting. So I make sure that I have a warm color and I have a cool color in everything that I paint. Okay, this is mostly warm right here. This is warm and cool. So I've got a cool purple, I've got a nice cool minty kind of greenish blue right here, and I've got a yellowish white. No pure white at all. No pure white at all. I've just got this kind of a just a combination. And watch what I'm doing. I am not beating it and beating it and beating it. I'm laying it down. Okay, I just lay it down like that, and I pull my arm back so that I'm not tempted to just go over. The more I do that, the more I beat it to death. Well, that's what happens. You just beat it to death. That's what happens. So you want to make sure you just pick up your paint and then just lay it down. Oh, look at that. That was just a teal. Now, when you do something that's a little too much, all you do is you just kind of fuzz it out around the edges, and it works. It just works. And so pull that around and see if I can use this right here on my brush and give it just a little indication. I'm kind of liking this. Are you? I hope so. Yeah. Someday somebody's going to just say it out loud. No, no, you do. Of course you love it, right? Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of sap green and a little purple. What I need is a very dark value behind these pairs, and so I'm going to throw that in right there just a little bit to where it just will help me to set this off. And again, I'll just keep messing around with this until I get this right. So when I want something like this to stand out in a light kind of way, I will put something dark behind it. Okay, so it's called Rembrandt lighting, and what happens is you think about, okay, this is very light here, and so if I put something light behind that, what's going to happen? Well, it's going to just completely disappear, right? It'll disappear. So eventually I'm going to go back in and I will put a dark background behind here. Sometimes I'll split it almost down the middle to where this side's dark and this side's light, and these come together. And so this is kind of the dark side of the picture right here. And so I will put a light background here. So it's not all the same all the way across. I know that's a bit confusing, but that's how, that's how Rembrandt did it. Okay, I think so. Not that I was there, but you can learn a lot by looking at the various different pieces and paintings, and going to museums whenever we can at some point. Okay, so now let's get over here to this pear. I'm going to go ahead and put in some, this is kind of a dark color, so it's a little hard to see. I got this transparent orange here, and I'm going to begin lightening it up, and we've got a nice, basically it's a really dark middle tone, but I'm going to bring it up just a little bit more with some white, and isn't that pretty? That's so beautiful. One of my favorite colors, nice and warm. in the wintertime we have a lot of snow, and so when I paint, sometimes I get a little carried away with the warm colors. I just love them so much. And I paint great big huge, yellow tulips, and so that we have something to look at that is warm and sunny when it's blustery and cold. I love it, absolutely love it when it snows, especially now that it's so stinking hot. Oh my goodness, we look forward to the day when it gets nice and cold again, just a little bit. Some of us do. Dr. Williams doesn't necessarily like shoveling it, but oh well. Now I'm going to go back in and see. I'm going to test something out. I've got this this paint down here that's in kind of a lavenderish gray color. And rather than putting a warm highlight on here, I'm going to go in and see what happens with just picking up a little bit of that lavenderish grayish green color and putting that on the top of the pear in there. And it kind of, rather than putting in a bright lemony yellow, I'm putting in a lavender grayish color. I'm going to just put a little more lavender in there, and we're going to really soup it up with some white. It's not that light. You can tell it's not that light. It's kind of middle tone, but it will register, hopefully, fingers crossed, it will register as a lighter color. Isn't that weird? Okay, so can you see that one on here? I think you can, yes. See how dark that looks down here on the white background? Now I'm not going to do any sleight of hand. I'm picking this up on my paintbrush, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to put that down, and it registers as this light, beautiful light onto this pear. I'm just barely laying it down on there, not on the edge of the pear, but kind of slightly in, and beginning to create this beautiful feeling of 3 dimensions. And now I can take that same color on here and maybe plunk it around over here. Don't get too carried away. Do things deliberately. Sometimes you can have a happy accident, and sometimes it's just a blowout. But okay, now, so I've got this one here. Now I'm going to even take it up 1 notch further and go in with some white. And I think this time I'm going to take just a little bit of cobalt teal. There's a difference between cobalt teal and cobalt turquoise. Turquoise is much, much darker. And teal has just got this nice kind of minty look to it. So what happens if I now go into the middle of that light that I just did and put in a little bit of that teal? I hope you can see that. It's just, it makes it much more interesting adding that teal inside of that. So now I can kind of look and say, okay, where would this even make this part work a little bit? This is too just boring white up in there. I could take that and throw it over here. Look at, I had a little bit of yellow, a little bit of teal on there, and I'm just swinging around, and I'm not doing this. How many times am I going to have to say this? ¿Cuántas veces te tengo que decir? That was one thing, is that means how many times do I have to say it? That is, I just do it just this many times. I just lay it down, pick it up. That makes what's called art, okay? We don't want it to look, well, maybe you do, photorealistic. We want it to look like a painting, right? So I don't want it to just beat it to death. And you know what? I have done that so many times, you guys. I have absolutely killed it to the point of no return. And then I'm not happy with it. So if you can just lay it down and walk away, or have somebody say, stop, put your brush down, don't get too carried away. So now I'm going to come down. I don't even know what's on my brush, but I want to put in just a little bit of a little reflected light. There it is right there. I'm going to do that same little thing just a little bit on the edge of there, so that it kind of bounces up around the outside of that pear, and it makes it look like it's glowing just a little bit. Okay, now this is not sitting down. This isn't sitting down very well, so I'm going to now take a very dark value green, maybe a little bit of blue. Whoops, where am I? Blue and green, and a little purple. And I'm going to, this is almost black. It's just super dark. And then I'm going to come underneath this pear like here and give it kind of a bit of a parting line. And then I'll pull that out. I don't want it too sharp either, but I do want it to kind of sit down there onto the table, and then it's beyond the cast shadow. Okay, it's a parting line that will kind of sit the hair down, and then I'll do the same thing over here to where it makes this sit down a little bit better, like that. And I don't want it to look like a Gauguin where it's got lines around it. I've been doing a little bit of that kind of painting lately where I'm adding lines around it for fun, but not in this case. Okay, now I'm going to come in and then I'm going to just get up close to it a little bit and soften it out just a little bit. Isn't that fun? Yeah, I like it. All right, so now I'm realizing I'd like a little bit more of a cool, a little cool. I'm going to get into my little mint green over here, add a little more white, and I'm going to come up and add just a little bit more mint green right there. And I'm going to look back a little bit, and hopefully I haven't, made this into some kind of Willy Wonka jar here. And we'll just, if anything stands out too much, then I just wipe off my brush, and then I can come along and just barely marry two things together by laying my brush down flat next to the edge of a shape that's sticking out, and I'll just barely marry one edge of that highlight into the other by lightly putting my brush down. This is kind of one of those advanced moves, and then wiggling it back and forth carefully into the shade below so that I'm not losing it. I don't want it to completely disappear. No, I want it to actually remain there, but also not stick out like a sore thumb. Okay, that's the balance of trying to figure out all these different things. Now, on top of that, I want to come back in with a little bit more of that green, a little bit of blue, a little bit of purple, and now I'm going to add just a touch of white to it. And this is where silver kind of gets into that greenish color there, and I want to make sure that we've got a shape there. I might have lost it. Okay, now I'm going to show you what happens when you put the edge in and how you can set this off. This is going to be fun. All right, hold on. Okay, this is bugging me up here. Is it bothering anybody else? Okay. So I'm going to come back in and warm this up. It feels too cool to me, so I'm going to go in with a little bit more of that kind of raw sienna color so that it doesn't look like it's out from some other planet. Putting that in, kind of adding a little bit, lightening it up just a touch. And I see my ellipse is kind of going a little bit astray. A little wonky. It's kind of going up like this because I'm closer to it over here. Okay. And then I'll go back in and add just a tiny bit of that light there. Okay, now the next thing is to take a tiny bit of white. I don't use pure white, but this is close to it. I've got a yellow warm light. Now I'm going to hopefully go into the cool and just get it as close to as light as I possibly can. Right there, and right there, and right there. So you look at the thing that you're painting, the actual item, and you're looking and saying, all right, where am I actually seeing highlights? And you need to kind of think that this is a little bit rough. Okay, now I'm going to go in next, and we're going to think about what I just talked about. This is the light side of the vase, so now I'm going to go in, and we're going to hopefully thinking in Turkish, Brian. Okay, here we go. Inshallah, that means hopefully in Turkish. Okay, yes, I'm studying Turkish. Okay, and now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to take this and begin to create a darkened background and kind of cut that out a little bit. A lot of times when you're doing landscape, everybody, if you're doing a landscape, you would start from the sky, work from the background, forward, forward, forward. When you're painting a still life or a portrait, it's different. You're painting the whole thing all at once, okay, alla prima, all at once, and that is a little different. So if you're doing a watercolor, it's really different. You paint from light to dark, and then so You know, it just really depends. But so that when you're painting with oils and you're painting a still life, at least this is the way this girl does it. I'm going to start out with what the most important thing I want to have on my painting. I'm going to paint it first. Okay, I know that's crazy because I want to make sure there's room for it. Okay, there's got to be room for it. If I paint all the beautiful background and all of a sudden I don't have room for my vase, you know, it gets a little bit disconcerting. So I want to put the most important thing in the focal point on the painting. I don't want to lose it. So I put that down and I work it. And because I don't know exactly what I'm going to need in the background until I get it down. Okay, that's just me. It may not be you, but that's the way I do it. And then over here we've got this dark, the dark side of the jar. So now I'm going to go back in loads and loads of white. And let's put in just a little bit of our orange. And I'm going to, this is really exaggerated, everybody, but I want you to see that. Okay, that's, you see how that light sets off that purple base right here. And then I'll come up in here about right in the middle and I'll merge those two, that dark background in with the light right here so that it doesn't look like a big, you know, yellow spot. I want to make sure that it makes sense and it's believable. And then I'm just going to go back in again, put a little bit more light. You can see how that works. Dark on one side and then it over. I go back to figure out how I want this part. And then I merge the two backgrounds together. I got to figure out where my table line is and make sure I don't mess that up too much. There's a little bit of a table line there. Yeah, I might, you know, throw that in. And I make sure that I don't bump that table on the top of the pear. Okay. Because that's called a kiss. You don't want to have an accidental, inappropriate, you know, collision with 2 or 3 lines that bang into each other. You want to make sure that it either overlaps or is separate. That's a lot to learn. I know it's very, very much. There's a lot that, you know, you can keep learning forever. Okay, so now I'm going to come under here, and we're going to lighten that up just a little bit. Just like that. So if I want something to really be seen, I want to find a contrast, right? I can make a contrast with warm and cool. I've got right here, I've got what's called a complementary color. So I've got yellow against purple right there. And that really makes it just stand up and shout. Okay, so I've got these warm pears down here that are in a gold. If I want those to pop out, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, it doesn't make sense to jump off the boat and paint it a completely different color, but I don't want to have too much of the same color over the top of this. So I think what I'm going to do is do something a little bit crazy, and I'm going to take a little bit of blue and a little bit of teal just to show you what it looks like. I might not leave it like this forever, but this is what a wonderful contrast might be between the pears and the background. And so here is a little bit of, are you kidding me, teal? Yeah, there it is. And so if I want the pears to kind of stand up, I'll put a little bit of that teal color in there, and then I'll just kind of mess around, put them all over the place. Put the teal color like this. And then you can see how lovely that looks. If I wanted to, you know, really stand out, then I make sure that I do a contrasting tonal value. So this is really fairly dark, so I'm adding kind of a light teal there, and then I'll put this up here. If I want it to really tie together, I'm going to take some of that teal and throw it up into the background up here so that it doesn't look like it's aliens from outer space. So I'll take a little bit of that on my brush and throw that in, tie it together. I'm just using what's on my background as my palette where I can grab a little bit of paint and make it all kind of come together. Now, if this is feeling just a little bit funny, it's just sticking out a little bit too much, so I'm just going to very, very carefully bring a little bit of that down so that it doesn't stick out like that. And that's kind of going this direction. So, all right, next we're going to put just a little bit of this beautiful sense of light. Now look how big my brush is. I've got a 1.5 inch little paintbrush. It's not a fancy paintbrush. It's just a kind of like a hardware brush. And I'm just kind of fluffing it around a little bit like this. And I'm not going to worry about finishing off the corners. This is called a vignette. So vignette is when you don't just go from one corner to the other and try to fill in every dumb little thing, you know. Now this is still looking a little bit too red, so, or red purple. So the opposite of purple is going to be, it's going to be in the gold, but I don't want it to bump into the gold of the pear. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with just a little bit of my blue, yeah, so that it doesn't look quite as purple, but it looks a little bit on the dark side there, a little bit like that. And I might actually take some of that raw sienna and throw that in, so I warm up the shadow. I don't want that shadow to be so cold that it doesn't, it you know, makes you feel bad. So put that like that. Okay, now last bit, and I think we're almost done. Is that exciting or what? Okay, now I'm just going to go in with a little more of almost straight white and double check my highlights. Make sure that I've got them in the right place. And then you see how I've got this light coming down this way. Now here's an exciting little thing to do. I've got the strokes coming down this way. When I want that highlight to pop out a little bit, I'm going to go across the form. This is advanced, you guys. I'm going to go across the form that way so that it raises itself a little bit away from the pot. And so I'll do it again. Let's see if there's one up here that I can do. This one's going down, so I'm now going to take one just a little bit crosswise in line with the light, and just a few little spots here and there. I think I'm happy. I hope you are too. Okay. Well, I think that's all the time I have for today, and I hope you did learn something. Let me know if you did, and don't forget to share with your friends, everybody. I'd love it if we could kind of grow this channel and get it going. And you can also find more of my videos on my YouTube channel at Nettie K Studio. So it's YouTube, whatever it is, the YouTube, just Google Nettie K, Nettie, letter K, Studio on YouTube. There's about probably, I don't know, 75 videos that you can watch at this stage. Everything from dog portraits to still life, a little bit of landscapes, and a bunch of other stuff. So I hope you will join me and be part of my 6,000 students that are watching at this stage. Isn't that fun? Okay, back to you, Dr. Williams.
Well, a couple questions,
Yes.
and just a little bit of a feedback. We were enjoying people coming and going as you were teaching.
Wonderful.
And so that was sort of fun for tonight to begin to realize we're now interacting with other people.
That's wonderful.
And so we look forward to that into the future as we have an active and interactive opportunity to work with students around the world. One of the things I'd like for you to do is help us set up next week. And that would be, we've now worked on 2 shapes. And why don't you remind us of the shapes we worked on? Okay,
so we worked on the sphere, and we worked on and there's another sphere, and then cylinder right here, and we also worked on the 3 basic tonal values last week, and then we've added a lot more this week with color, and also with the added cast shadow and extra highlights. So that's a little bit of what we have done this time around.
And so as an artist, you have the freedom to change, but what's your sense of what you'll be teaching next week?
Well, I'm just wondering, we may do a little bit of a floral next week. I think I'd like to show you how to paint a sunflower, and we may do another transparent glass with sunflowers. And then I'd also like to do one crazy thing if we have time, and that is to do a little bit of a drawing of the face. Okay. Now, I also wanted to mention to you that this type of painting is really, it's sort of semi-realistic, but it's not really super photorealistic. Now, I know a lot of you guys love to figure out how to do photorealism, and that's great if that's your thing. And I've done photorealism a lot when I was first beginning. Now, as a more mature artist, not that it's good, bad, or indifferent, but I like painting a little bit looser, and this would be called impressionism, okay, where it's not super realistic. And so we will move anywhere from abstract all the way to super photorealistic. That's kind of the range. You can start out with an abstract painting and leave it there, or you can work it all the way up into tight realism. But I think we're going to kind of try to keep it into this kind of little bit looser realm for now. But I'd like to teach you a little bit about portraiture and a little bit more on florals. So that's the two areas that I'll go. And then if we have time in another week, we may even hit a little bit of landscape and water painting. Yes, I love doing that as well.
Wonderful. Johnny wants to give you a little feedback, and her feedback's pretty impressive.
Really?
A great painting.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
Thank you, Johnny, for participating with us.
Really
the other thing I'd like is to give people a little bit of heads up as to what colors. I've got your palette. Let's bring up your palette here.
That's a mess.
And why don't you tell us what colors you'll probably be using next week so people can prepare for it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is I generally use, this is where I'm at right now. One of my very favorite colors is let's see, I've got my cobalt teal. That's one of my favorite colors. Cobalt teal.
Could you put your paintbrush?
And that's just right about there. This cobalt teal right there. And it's a light teal, and of course if you add white to it, it turns into that lovely mint color right there. I can use that in a portrait or anything, but I want warm colors and I want cool colors. And I didn't use this lemon yellow today because that's just too garish. I use that for landscapes. But I've also got what's called quinacridone violet, which is a wonderful color. Quinacridone violet, and that's a little purple color. Another one is raw sienna. Raw sienna, very, very important color. And let's see, I have some sap green. This big puddle is sap green. And we also have ultramarine blue. Okay, so and then of course you got to have a white. Oh, and don't forget that dioxazine purple. That's a dark purple, which is, if I add white to, let's just see what that looks like. I've got to find a little clean spot on my palette. Let's see if I can find one. You can see that over here. Okay, so that's a dark purple, and you can see when I add a little white to it, it makes that kind of lilac, dark lilac color right there. That's kind of nice. And then if I want to make it a little bit rosier, I've got my quinacridone violet, and that makes it a little rosier, and it's just quite lovely. I usually, for portraits, you guys, when we do a little bit on portraiture, and I'm not sure, I think that's too big of a jump for next week. Do we have 2 weeks to go, or are we just going to keep going, Dr. Williams? I'm trying to remember if we have 1 week or 2.
Oh,
I don't know.
Technically only have one.
1 week. Oh, man. Okay.
And I've got a question here when you've got a moment.
Okay. Yeah.
And Johnny is asking, is there a traceable drawing? Traceable drawing is not my skill.
Drawing is not your skill. Okay. This would be a fun thing to understand. I will, one of the things that you can do is if you have a photo of what you would like to do, okay, and most of you guys have printing abilities. If not, you can go to your print shop or your copy shop. You take a photo of one of, even this little setup. You can take a photo of a setup that you like, put some things down, and what I'm gonna pop off camera for just a second, so hang on. I think I've got a piece of paper that I can show this on. Maybe if I stick my vest right in the middle of my stuff. Okay. All right. So this is fun. All right. So if I go, if I do, say I've got this little drawing right here. Okay. If I do a photograph and I just blow it up to what size I want. Okay. The size of my canvas. You can blow it up really, really big. And then what I will often, well, I don't do it, but if I get stuck on a portrait especially, I will do this. I will turn, and this is on computer paper, not thick paper. You want thin paper. you can actually take the back of you have your photo on one side, you take the back of your picture, okay, the back of your paper, and you cover it with pencil, okay? Just cover the whole back of it with graphite. This is a serious trick here. Cover the whole back of it with graphite, so it's just gray all the way across. Then you turn it over, turn it over, set it onto your canvas or wherever you're going to paint. And you can use a pencil or a pen to push down and transfer the drawing onto your canvas. What? Yes, you can. So that's one way you can do it. You just make a picture on some thin paper, thin computer paper, cover the back with charcoal or graphite, and then lay it on your canvas and push hard onto that piece of paper, and it will transfer that little drawing onto your canvas. Then you just take a can of hairspray, spray that down, and you've got a nice drawing that you can work from. I hope that helps, Johnny, because it's really a great tool when you're not confident, but you just want to have a good painting in the end. You know, you don't want to look silly. Practice from life, yes, but I find also learning from tracing or transferring is really, really good for your brain as well, because it gets your hand going in just the right way so that you can kind of get the feel of what those shapes are like. Okay, so tracing isn't just, it's not cheating, or transferring isn't cheating. It's really training your brain to do those shapes just right, and then giving you the freedom to just play with your paint. Okay, so I give you permission. Yes, I do. Okay.
And she thanks you for that hint.
Yeah,
so,
you're welcome.
Nettie K, thank you for a wonderful evening, and I look forward to next week at least. And if life treats us well, we'll try and go into August and also offer some here. And so again, thank you.
Thank you.
And so to everyone out there, what a wonderful evening, and what an opportunity now for us to sort of play with the technology. And though Nettie K and I are sitting in the studio here, it's now sort of fun to have all of you entering into this. And so we're enjoying that part of the technological opportunities that we have with live on YouTube. And so this has been a wonderful night for community education from McCall College. Again, I'm Dr. Brian Williams, and it's been my pleasure to host and to moderate our time tonight. And I trust you'll join us again next Thursday night at 7 p.m. when we'll host a community education with Nettie K Studio.